Chapter 12. Return to the origin pill. Listening to the rainy pavilion inside Kangchon's house. Ha ha ha. Kid, what a laugh, old man. With old man as an alchemist, you actually want these rubbish pills. What a fool. At this moment, Emperor Dan was sitting on a chair with his thighs on his legs, cackling with laughter. On the table to the side were dozens of pills of mixed colors. At a glance, they were not known to be any good, far worse than the Foundation establishment pills that Kangchon had eaten. These pills were personally delivered by Wang San's father, Wang Kai, a little more than he had expected, obviously for his son to make amends to Kangchon. Opposite the Dan Emperor, Kangchon was filled with embarrassment as he laughed bitterly. It's not that I didn't think of it in the moment. This couldn't be blamed on him. There were too many things that had happened to him the past few days. And for a moment, he had forgotten that he still had Dan Emperor as a top alchemist. The Dan Emperor laughed loudly for half a day before he finally stopped and said to Kangchon, "But then again, even though these pills are not good, you still have to use them first. Because the pills that old me refined in the first place were all high-level pills. You can't even use them at your current cultivation level. So let me think for a moment. What would be a good pill to use at your current cultivation level?" Emperor Dan pondered for a moment. His eyes suddenly lit up and said, "Old me remembered. The Foundation establishment stage level is suitable for using the return to Yuan Dan. It can accelerate the process of helping you to condense your true qi and convert it into true essence, which will be of great use to you in the future when you impact the Jidan stage." What returning Yuan Dan Kangchon did not know, but from the Dan Emperor's words, he learnt that the Dan Emperor definitely did not have any returning Yuan Dan right now. And even if he was refining it now, he should have prepared some materials for refining it. Sure enough, right away, Emperor Dan gave Kangchon a list of materials for refining the return to origin Dan. 100 years of ginseng, dried fruits, thousands of spirit grass, demonic beast's blood. Kangchon looked at the list. Immediately straight eyes. The things listed above are not precious. To his frugal down all these years of family belongings, but also can only barely buy down a small half. There is a big half. Not to mention, he couldn't afford it. Even if he could afford it, he wouldn't know where to buy it. Elder Dan, everything else is fine, but this demonic beast essence blood is very precious. There are only a handful of times it appears in our heavy iron cities auctions, and all of them are sky high. Boy, I'm penniless. I can't even afford to buy a single hair of the demonic beast. Kangchon finished reading the list and complained to Emperor Dan with a crying face. "Oh, old me almost forgot. You kid is still a child. By the way, you used 45 of the bottle of 50 Foundation establishment Dan that old man gave you last time. Aren't there still 5 left? This thing is still very precious for you low-level cultivators. Take them to the auction house and sell them. Exchange them for the materials for refining the return to Yuan Dan. As for that demonic beast essence blood, well, said here." Dan old man smiled wryly. "You forgot about that little golden monkey. It's the offspring of the golden diamond god monkey. A drop of his essence blood is much better than those demonic beast essence blood. Really can't ask it to point." Kangchon shook his head when he heard this. "How can this work? I and it are friends. Even if there is no return to origin Dan, I can't ask for its essence blood, just according to your old man's idea. First sell those 5 Foundation establishment Dan. The rest will depend on luck. If it's really not possible, your old man refining some rubbish pills for the kid is also fine with your old man's realm. Even if you're refining the rubbish pills, it's still better than some extremely high quality pills." He also didn't forget to give Elder Dan a pat on the back. "Count on your kid's insight." Regarding Kangchon's heart's fart, Dan Emperor was obviously very flattered. A trace of relief flashed in his eyes as he laughed. "You kid is interesting. You even made friends with a monkey. But with that monkey's talent, it is indeed worthy of you. And perhaps it can help you in the future. You need to get on good terms with it." Emperor Dan was actually testing Kangchon. After all, right now his life and family were all pinned on Kangchon. If Kangchon was the kind of person who would do anything for the sake of his purpose, then it would be impossible for him to help Kangchon. Kangchon obviously did not have so much heart. He felt that he now got the opportunity, thanks to the golden monkey's help. If there is no golden monkey, I am afraid that he will not meet the Emperor of Dan and will not be successful in building the foundation. So for that golden monkey, Kangchon was grateful. Ending the conversation with the Dan Emperor, Kangchon began to take the pills supplied by the royal family. Preparing to impact the 4th level of the foundation establishment stage, this month's cultivation, he had already consolidated his cultivation thoroughly. So it was reasonable to say that this time, the impact would be a matter of course. However, several days later, Kangchon still did not succeed in impacting the 4th level of the foundation establishment stage, and only refined his cultivation by a few points. Kangchon's heart was very strange. He had the feeling that he and the 4th level of the foundation establishment stage were just one diaphragm away, but this diaphragm could not be pierced, and every time he impacted, it was just a little bit worse than a little bit worse. In response, Emperor Dan said, "Kid, your bloodline is very powerful, so every cultivation barrier is harder to break through than others. And as your cultivation increases, every further step you take in the future will be very difficult." "Ah, what kind of invincible bloodline is this? Then won't my cultivation speed in the future be much slower than others?" Kangchon sniffed with a face full of depression. "You brat, you don't know enough. The so-called invincible bloodline isn't always about fast cultivation speed. It's about combat power in the same rank. Take that Wong Fei kid. Even if he has the cultivation of the 6th level of the foundation establishment stage, he may not be your current opponent of the 3rd level of the foundation establishment stage. If you once you break through to the 4th level of the foundation establishment stage, how do you want to flatten him? How do you want to flatten him? The so-called invincible bloodline is to be invincible amongst the same rank, and to be able to fight across levels." Seeing that he didn't know what to do, Emperor Dan laughed and scolded him. Kangchon drifted off, but he didn't think that he was so powerful now. Except that on that day, when he was facing Wong Fei's aura, he indeed didn't have any fear, and he even had a hidden disdain in his heart. It seems like he needs a real battle to test his actual combat power, Kangchon thought in his heart. But in order to make a splash, on the day of the bar mitzvah, he knew that he still needed to hide his cultivation now, since he couldn't break through the 4th level of the foundation establishment stage for the time being. There was no point in continuing to cultivate. Kangchon began to consider the matter of the return to Origin Pill in his heart. So he left the royal mansion and traveled to the Heavy Iron City's workshop market. "Good day, young Master Kangchon." As he passed by the gate of the Wong mansion, the 2 guards watching the gate had particularly loud voices and were full of respect, even carrying a hint of awe. Obviously, the matter of Kangchon angrily beating up Wong San had already been learnt by them, making them not dare to be a bit disrespectful anymore. This is a world where the strong are honored, or, if you want to gain status, then you need to be strong. Kangchon sighed in his heart and paid no attention to the 2 guards watching the door. "I didn't expect young Master Kangchon to be so powerful, even with only a cultivation of the 1st level of Qi practicing stage. He was able to beat that Wong San half to death." One of the gatekeeper guards said in admiration. "It's a pity that young Master Kangchon couldn't always build his foundation. Otherwise, in this Heavy Iron City's young generation, what Li Chonjia would have to step aside." Another guard sighed.